Um, of the many jobs in film, does cinematographer prepare you best for being a director or others?
I think it prepared me very well. I don't think it's necessary, and I would tell somebody else who's interested in directing, there are all kinds of different talents that you could bring to directing, and some directors are much better with actors. Some directors are much better with words, or I understand. I have a great strength in camera because that's my background, and I have that background of being on set and knowing how to run a set as an camera operator, a cinematographer, and knowing how to work with the crew. And I have a pretty strong understanding of what everybody on set does. And so I think that's very helpful. But, to distill the job of director down to like a sentence or two, you're the keeper of the story. And so you can be the keeper of the story in a lot of different ways. And I've seen people do that in a lot of different ways. On This Is Us, I know there's a lot of fans of that here. Ken Olin is, he directed 30 plus episodes of This Is Us. He comes from an acting background, and he has a very strong instinct of when a performance is working and when it's not, and how to get that performance to come through, how to draw that out of an actor.
Great. Well, I think we're sort of entering the This Is Us part of our talk. So I would like to show your Steadicam reel, which I just think is fantastic. But before then, I really am dying to know, what are these different camera positions that I'm hearing about? I don't know what they mean when you say you're A camera or B camera.
Oh, sure.
And what is Steadicam exactly? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I'll take it from when I was an intern for Nancy Schreiber through that cinematography mentorship back with Project Involve, as a camera PA, as an intern for her, and I met her camera assistants. And so that turned into being a film loader. I come from the days of film, right? We don't shoot film too often anymore, but I got to load film as a film loader. So your responsibility is loading those magazines and downloading those magazines, and it's a lot of responsibility when that's your entire day's work. Is you could, if you open the door or open this magazine to the light, like, you've ruined the day's work. It's a lot of pressure on a young person. So film loading, that's your main job. Second assistant, you're the person who claps the sticks and says, take one, more or less. And you're also sort of managing all the different equipment that comes in and out of the department and making sure that things are in place. You're marking actors when you rehearse. So you'll have a tape roll, and they'll rehearse the scene with the actors and the director. And when they decide this is where Sterling is going to start here, and then he's going to walk over and do this here, and then he's going to come here, then you're putting green tape down at each place that he stops, so that the stand-ins can then go to those points when the actors go away and you light the scene. So then you have stand-ins who are usually the same height, build, skin tone of the actors, and they're going to assist the lighting team to light the set while the actors go back to their trailers or their chairs or wherever they go. First assistant, your main job is keeping things in focus, keeping the camera running and keeping things in focus. And that's, for anybody who's done any photography on their own, they understand how difficult focus can be, especially at wide apertures. And then imagine doing that as an actor's moving through space, maybe even as close as 2 feet from your camera, and moving in whatever way that they feel, and you have to follow them, with these days it's a remote, but you're moving you're moving the lens so that you're matching when they're at 6 feet, you're exactly at 6 feet. When they go out to 12 feet, you're 12 feet. When they come to 2 feet, you're there. And you might have only this much depth of field, and you're expected to keep them sharp the whole time. So it's a super difficult, stressful job, very thankless job. I was happy to stop doing that as soon as I could and become an operator. And as an operator, then simple description of an operator is pan, tilt, invoice. So that's the, you want to get paid, but it's obviously it's much more than that. But that's the basic thing. You're operating the camera. You're following the actors in, whatever mode, handheld, or it's on a dolly, or it's on a crane. That's your responsibility, is to move the camera the way that the director and the cinematographer would like you to. And then Steadicam is it's a way to make the camera look like it's on a dolly, but it's actually mounted to your body. So you have a vest, and then you have this spring-loaded arm that comes out off of it, and the camera is on this. It's basically a pendulum. And so when you walk, the springs take the bounce out of the walk, and it has the appearance of being on a dolly. And so that was my specialty for like the past 10 years.
Wow. So what is it when you have a handheld camera kind of effect? So you don't have those springs that are absorbing the movement?
Right. So for fans of This Is Us, 99% of that show was handheld. So that's just, I'd say like a 35-pound camera with a pad on your shoulder, and you're holding, you've got your eye to it, and then do that for 12 hours.
Were you doing that?
Yeah.
Oh my.
So that's so when you and with This Is Us, like the camera kind of became this like additional character, and I think people felt like they were in the room with the Pearsons a lot of times, and that was sort of my job, right, is to move with them, and to sort of respond to their performances, their emotions, their motions, all of that.
But is that all carefully scripted out? Like, are you told you're going to pan now, or you're going to tilt now, or do you sort of make those decisions?
Depending on the project, you might be, it might be very prescribed and very precise. David Fincher is famous for being very, very particular and very precise in the way that he designs his sets, the way that he moves his camera, doing many, 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 many takes. 70 takes wouldn't be out of the question to do on one of his films for just one setup of a scene. We don't have time for that in television. And This Is Us is probably the opposite of that, where I was given as an operator like an incredible amount of freedom to do what I felt was right for the scene. And so Yasu Tanita, who was our DP for most of the show, he would choose the lens, he would light the scene, but he wouldn't really tell me, okay, at this moment you pan here, at this moment you do this or that. A lot of it was left up to me and Sean O'Shea, who was my first assistant, and trust that we could just follow the emotion of the scene and follow these actors as they did their thing. And for people who remember season one, the end of season one, Jack and Rebecca had this blowout fight when they came back from her singing tour on the road. And right after he left the house, and so right after Jack leaves the house, Rebecca's sitting there at the dining room table, and we had set up, we knew, okay, Jack's going to leave, and then and you're going to go back to Mandy, but that was pretty much all the instruction. And when I panned back to her, then there she was and she had started to cry, and then as the tear went down her face, then I tilted down and followed the tear, and she was holding this moon necklace, which was so significant for the story, and then held on that just enough, and then went back up to her face, and then adjusted so that, you know, we saw this light flaring the lens, and that was like the last shot of season 1. But that was somewhat improvised.
Wow. That is fascinating. And I would assume on a show like This Is Us that the camera does become another character. I mean, because it's just constantly shifting point of view and, right, and timelines and et cetera, et cetera. So, oh yeah, there you are.
Thanks.
So how many cameras were used in a scene?
For This Is Us, it's 2 cameras. So you asked about A and B. So A is considered the primary camera, and then B is sort of the secondary camera. There's sort of a hierarchy in the film business, and certainly in the camera department. I'm told, I wasn't in the military, but there are sort of military structures that we inherited from that, and even equipment, the dollies that we use, you know, that sort of boom up the camera up and down, and they're on wheels. Those came from loading ordnance into aircraft. Those were those bomb loaders. They took that technology and turned that into camera technology.
Wow.
The heads that we use, there's these, it's called a gear head, you know, that you control with wheels to pan and tilt. That comes from anti-aircraft and artillery, you know, tilting, turn the wheel this way to go up, turn the wheel this way to go down, turn the wheel this way to pan that way. Like, that was taken from war and turned into art.
Wow, this is so interesting. I hope we're not boring anybody with all this technical talk. I find it totally fascinating. Alan says you must have really steady holding. You must have really steady holding, because it doesn't at all seem like it's all handheld.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, are your shoulders killing you? Like, is that like a hazard of the trade?
You know, it's there's different ways. There are sort of helpers that some people use. There's a thing called an easy rig, which, you know, it's something that you can wear, and this thing sort of comes up over your head, and there's a cable, and then it sort of takes some of the weight. I find it a little bit restricting, because I feel like I'm always kind of getting up against a wall or into a corner or through a doorway, and it's truly a game of inches. And when you know, if you flub it, right, you run into that thing, like, you've blown the take more or less, and you don't want to do that. You're gonna tell Mandy Moore she's got to go again because you tripped.
Oh man, but that must happen, right? I mean, it's okay. And
yeah, no, and there's an understanding. Look, we're all human. We're artists. We're trying things. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. They can make more mistakes than we can. So.
But you had said earlier that there are some things that are thankless, and I wonder, you know, how many people notice all the work that you're putting into it. Do people thank you afterwards, or?
Oh, you know, this is us. I've certainly, on, you know, more than any other show that I've been on, at least, you know, person to person, and coming to the end of the show when, you know, it's the time, and knowing that this was the end of our show, you know, we had that opportunity to be able to tell each other those things, because we knew this was the last time we were going to see each other, right? And so, so we got to tell each other those things, and how important, you know, actors were telling me how important I was to their process. You know, Mandy, Milo, Sterling, you know, I was a part of their experience. Milo told me on his last day, he was like, you know, you being there helped shape my performance. You know, Mandy said how much confidence it gave her to be able to look over at me and just know that things were going to be taken care of. So yeah, it's really nice to hear. You don't hear those things all the time.
Yeah. I have seen footage of like on the last day of shoot or something, as each person sort of wraps up, then, you know, they come out and everybody applauds and, you know, they get flowers or something. Was that filmed? Did you film the end of this show?
You know what we did was, you know, we knew in those last couple weeks in the last episode when it was going to be somebody's last day, and so we made sure, and it was a request by post-production, let's make sure that we have cameras rolling when we wrap people. And at that point, like, I gave my camera to my second assistant and I said, here's your chance to operate. And so they got to have that experience while, you know, the different actors gave their sort of goodbye speeches.
Oh, did you cry?
Yeah. It's, and I've had the experience of holding the camera and you know, crying into the eyepiece, because I think that's the most I'm there with the actors, right? And if I'm doing my job right, I'm connected with them, and so I'm feeling what they're feeling a lot of times. Yeah.
Oh man, on that show, like that's like a cry fest every week
Jimmy
practically.
Fallon did a really funny skit when we did season 1 of the crying boom operator. You know, he kept blowing takes because he was crying so loud, and it's not that far from the truth.
Okay, well, before we get too deep in the weeds on This Is Us, let me show this Steadicam reel that you prepared. You described it to us earlier. It's sort of like your resume / portfolio. Do you want to talk about what the Steadicam reel is while I cue it up?
Sure. Yeah, like you said, it's sort of the resume when you haven't worked with somebody. Most of the work that you get in the film business comes from people that you've worked with before, or them giving a referral for you. But as an operator, the first thing that somebody wants to see is, well, let's see her reel. And so the important things to demonstrate in a reel are, you know, I guess number 1, technical proficiency. Number 2, sort of like, have you worked on the scope of project that people are looking to hire you for? And then of course it's important to have recognizable faces. And so I think you'll see all 3 on this.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen and I hope everybody can see this. So I have basically just gone to James's website. So I hope, if you want to see what I'm seeing, just go to jtakatacamera.com. And there's some really interesting shots here. James, do you want to talk about, like, this is in Vietnam?
Yeah, season 3.
Yeah.
This was just from like a week ago.
Yeah, amazing shot. So this is from the actual final episode of This Is Us, and that's you carrying a what?
That's a to get into the gear. That's an Aeroflex Mini with Panavision lenses, and yeah, that's like our standard setup there. That's a carry handle on the top where my dolly grip grabs that at the end of the take and takes it off my shoulder.
Okay, so this is not a Steadicam.
That is not a stick. That's handheld mode.
Okay. Yeah. Then what's this one? What are you carrying? Same thing?
Yeah, that's also Vietnam. That's handheld. The picture in the middle with Sterling, that's handheld, and then the picture on the right is Steadicam. That's
okay.
I mean, it's not you can't see the rig that well, but that's Steadicam. You can kind of see that I'm wearing a vest, and there's this heavy thing.
How much does that weigh?
About 75 pounds, like all the stuff together. The arm, the vest, the camera.
75 pounds, and you don't have any back trouble?
I don't. You know, the instructors, when you take the course, they said, hey, Steadicam will actually make your back stronger, and you know, they're right.
Wow. Okay, so no more Pilates, just do this. Okay.
Pilates is cheaper.
Okay, so I'm going to run this. This, I think, is about a 3-minute clip. and it will show lots of different projects that James has worked on. It's really beautiful. There isn't any dialogue in this. It's just all music, but enjoy everybody, and then we'll come back. Well, so I hope everybody got a really good sense of the range of work that you do. I recognize Sons of Anarchy. What was the bank robbery one?
That was a TNT show called Animal Kingdom. No animals involved.
Right, Scott Speedman was in that, I think.
Yeah.
And then I saw something with Jennifer Love Hewitt in it.
Yes. I spent a lot of my early career with Jennifer Love Hewitt. As a camera assistant, I worked all the seasons of Ghost Whisperer. And then we went on to do that show, which was called The Client List, which ran for 2 seasons on Lifetime. And actually, her key hairstylist, Michael Wrights, who I knew from back in Ghost Whisperer days, is Mandy Moore's key hairstylist on This Is Us. So Michael and I have known each other for over 20 years. And so when he said, "I'm proud of you," when I got that chance to direct, it really meant something.
Oh, wow. So Shirley asks, is your life exciting? Can you elaborate on that, Hall, please?
Long periods of boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer terror. No, that's somebody's description of war. No, yeah, it's exciting. We get to go to really cool places, like that show Pitch. You know, I'm a baseball fan, and so we only did 1 season of Pitch, but our first day was at Dodger Stadium, and parts of Dodger Stadium which I'd never been to. on the field, in, you know, out in the sort of the tunnels by the locker rooms. We got a week in San Diego at Petco because Ginny Baker was a Padre, and we got to shoot at up in San Francisco. I forget what you guys call your ballpark now, but we were on the field. The Giants were not in the playoffs that year, so we actually got to be on the field, and we got to play catch in the outfield. We got a couple days shooting there too. So it was too bad that show didn't go more, because, you know, there was talk of, well, season 2, we're going to go to Wrigley, we're going to go to Yankee Stadium, all that kind of stuff. But I literally went from stage 27 at Paramount, which was our pitch stage, and pushed my stuff over to stage 32, which is just across the road, to This Is Us, which was also a Dan Fogelman show. So I came in, I think, episode 11 of season 1.
Oh, that was your first episode for This Is Us? Yeah. And you've been working on it ever since?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're about to get into our This Is Us heavy duty talk, folks. So put in all of your This Is Us questions. And for those, I believe the pitch was about the first female Major League ball player, I think, right? Yeah. She was a pitcher.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's too bad that show didn't get picked up.
That show was like a year before its time. It really was. It was 2015, pre-election 2016. You know, it was just right before its time.
Right. Okay. Maybe we can find it on Hulu or something.
It's out there. Yeah, it's out there.
Okay. So this leads into the question of, you work on multiple shows at a time?
So as a camera person, you might, and most of my experience has been, you get hired for an entire season, right? So like on This Is Us, you get a call to be camera operator, and you do the whole season if you can make it to the end. There's also what we call day playing, where you're not on the show full time, but at times when they need an extra person or somebody is sick, whatever, then you come in as a day player. And so, and then you have an opportunity to work on a bunch of different things and meet a lot of different people. And so you might be working on, you know, an action TV show one week, and then a comedy big feature the next week, and then a reality show or a Zumba video the next week. I mean, I've done all of those, right? So.
And then I read your IMDb profile, or your resume, and you've been on This Is Us for pretty much the duration of the show, but you've done different camera work. So how do you get assigned a certain position, let's say, and then that's going to be your position all season, or can you sort of move up and down?
So usually you're hired as one thing and you do that one thing. For This Is Us, I was hired as the A camera operator, also the Steadicam operator. Even though we mostly were a handheld show, there were times where we used Steadicam. Season 2, the way that TV gets made, it's such a tight schedule. You know, you're shooting an episode that's going to air in just a few weeks. That one thing that we do is something called double ups. So the last day of episode 1 is also the first day of episode 2. And so you have 2 units shooting at the same time. In season 2, Yasu, our cinematographer, offered me the chance to be the cinematographer for those double up days, which was really cool. And I said, well, I don't really want to be a DP. I'm a director, but I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say no. And I really learned a lot doing that. And I think I gained a lot of trust with the producers and the actors by doing that. And I sort of continued doing that shooting the double ups, you know, episode day one, last day, first day. And then there were times where Yasu would have to go out of town, right? Like, oh, he's going to go shoot the Washington, D.C. unit for a week. I'm going to shoot the LA unit. He's going to shoot the New York unit. I'm going to shoot the LA unit. That kind of thing. And then we shared a cinematography credit season 2. And then season 4, when he started directing, he needed to take an episode off to prep. So he was out of the loop. So I became the cinematographer while he was prepping. And then when he was directing, I was his cinematographer. So there was this sort of, and that's the thing that you can get into when you're on a long-term project, is there's this opportunity for advancement, which presented itself on This Is Us. Mm-hmm. And it was that environment where, you know, there were assistant editors who became full editors. Lyson Ho, who was my editor on episode 613 that I directed, started off as an assistant editor. Another Asian American on our crew. Fantastic talent. But she was somebody who moved up, right? There were people who started as script coordinators who got to write full episodes. There was a lot of that sort of people being given a chance to do something new.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a great comment here. That was a very impressive range of work. I can see why you were given the opportunity to direct such an important episode of This Is Us. So how did it come about that you got to do 613?
So part of my talking to directors that I worked with was trying to figure out how you get the chance to become a director, because it is a bit of a catch-22. Nobody wants to let you do it until you've done it. But then how do you do it, right? And so part of it is, okay, you do it on your weekends, you make your own projects, but that's only one piece. So I would say to somebody who's looking to do this, the 3 parts are: 1, do some of your own work, even if that's just a short film. 2, is you should shadow, which means you get a chance to just sort of follow a director throughout their process: prep, shoot, edit. And I got a chance to do that on This Is Us, and I also did it with another one of our directors. And then the third, probably most important piece, is you have to ask. And I asked Dan Fogelman. He was aware of it as early as season 3, but going into season 6, I had a call with him and I said, "Hey Dan, this is where my head's at. I really, if I get a chance, if you can make this happen, like this is what I want to do." And he said, "That's good to know. I can't promise you anything, but I'll see what I can do." And I watched as we went through the season, and like new directors came up and the episodes were getting checked off, and okay, there goes 5, there goes 6, like nobody said anything. Around 10, people started to say, Dan might have news for you, but he really didn't confirm it. I mean, there was a good 3-4 weeks of rumors before he finally said, "Okay, yeah, you've got 613."
How do you think you got chosen for that particular episode? Was there something in your camera work that they thought might be suited to this episode in particular?
I think what I understand of the choice of episodes. So we were coming off of the trilogy, which was episodes 8, 9, and 10, I believe, which, you know, for fans of the show, there's always sort of this trilogy in the middle of the season, which deals with each sibling, right? So there's like a Kate episode, a Randall episode, and a Kevin episode. And in season 6, those were directed by actors. So it was Mandy Moore, Milo Ventimiglia, and Justin Hartley directing those 3 episodes. And they were what we call cross-boarded. So those stories were all happening at once. And there were days where we were just switching off scene by scene. This is Milo's scene. this is Mandy's scene, this is Justin's scene. So it gets very logistically complicated. That was our trilogy. And then coming off of the trilogy, Dan had sort of said to me, well, I've opened this Pandora's box of letting actors direct. And so I know that like you deserve this. I want to make it happen for you, but just know, and he pretty much gave every main actor on our show the chance to direct if they wanted. The ones who didn't take him up on that, Susan Kalichi Watson decided to write an episode this year. So Chrissy Metz decided to write an episode this year. Sterling K. Brown politely declined. He said, I've just got too much going on. I think when he decides to do it, he'll be a fantastic director. But his wife was in New York acting in a show. He had his 2 young boys by himself, and he was, he's the star of the show and producing and developing on the show. He said, this is too much. Thank you very much. I'm not going to do it. So, but yeah, everybody else, Chris Sullivan got his first chance. John Huertas directed a couple episodes. And incidentally, he was the one who got me the job in Toronto. So it's who you know, as they say.
Okay, I think we can get a little bit into the weeds of wedding day, or the day of the wedding. I want to ask the first one, actually. There was a great sequence in that episode. And I'm sorry for people who aren't familiar with the show. I'll try to describe it very quickly. But basically, this show is known for just changing points of view and timelines. And at one point, one character who has Alzheimer's, she keeps mistaking her son for her deceased first husband. And at one point in a hotel room, you see the deceased husband actually enter the hotel room. And he sits down on the bed, and then the camera angle switches and you see that it's the son sitting on the bed. How did you do that? I just think that was terrific. And just the way that the camera sort of represented Mandy's point of view, or the woman's point of view, and then it switches to how it really is. Did you come up with some of that, or was that storyboarded in, or what?
So, it was scripted that it's Jack coming in the room, and then there's a reveal that it's Kevin. But if you read the script, it doesn't say how to do that. And so that's sort of left up to the director or perhaps the cinematographer to figure out, like, well, how do you want to do this? And Dan Fogelman and I did talk a little bit about, how this was going to be an important reveal. He didn't necessarily tell me how to do it either. And we tried different ways, right? The one that made it into the cut was the one that I liked best. And I was hoping that Dan would agree, and he did. There were versions, and Milo and Justin were very game, because it does require a little bit of acrobatics on their part, where, Milo's sitting on the bed, Justin's right off camera, and then, we're cueing them as soon as the camera's off them. Okay, go. And Milo's going and laying down on the other side of the bed, and Justin's sliding into position and, acting like he was there all along. And we probably did that on multiple angles in different ways, and sort of the simplest way to do it would be, maybe in a cut where you cut to somebody and then you cut back and all of a sudden it's somebody else. But I think it's something that we've done in the show to pretty good effect, and we haven't overdone it, is that we will sort of sneak in some of these one take things where the audience is like, oh, how did that happen? And so this particular one, I knew that I wanted to do it this way and reveal Kevin in profile, because it's not really a reveal. Everybody knows that it's not Jack. Like, everybody knows Jack's dead. He's not there. Rebecca has Alzheimer's. Like, it's not like a big surprise. But so visually, I felt like if we revealed Kevin in profile, like people will understand right away. And if they don't see it right away, they'll see it when he gets up. But it's not like sort of hit you over the head with it. And when I said, okay, this is the next shot that we're going to do, this Yasu, the cinematographer, he pushed back on me pretty hard. He was like, no, like, James, this isn't our show. That's too clever. It's never going to make the cut. Let's not do it. We got a day to make. Come on. I said, I don't know if this is going to work, Yasu, but I really want to do this. Okay, please set this up. And our B camera operator was operating A camera because I was directing. I was explaining to him how I wanted to do the shot, and he looked at me and he said, "Do you want to just do this? It's okay. Why don't you just do this?" And I was like, "Are you sure?" He's yeah, you do it. And I think there's a certain divide between explaining a shot and somebody being able to execute it. And in this case, I took the camera, and that's my sort of special place where I'm a member of Local 600. I'm now a member of DGA. I can do these things. Not everybody's allowed to do these things. And I knew what I wanted. And I was able to cue the actors at the right times. And so it was, okay, we're on Rebecca. Mandy gets up, we follow her, we go over to Griffin Dunn, and I told him, okay, lean forward when you tell him, hey, are you okay, kid? And that move forward kind of pushes us back into this profile, and then we reveal that it's Justin. And I think we did 3 takes, and it was take 3 that was the one that made it. And it stuck. It's great when you can get one of those signature shots, and a lot of people remember that one. A lot of people comment on that one. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad I got to ask you about that. Thanks. Sort of another scene that somebody wants to ask about, Donna, in the wedding day scene where Rebecca is singing, playing piano at the wedding. Did those flashbacks of Jack and Rebecca at the restaurant represent Rebecca remembering those times, or was it for the audience? That's a great question. This was a touching episode as it dealt with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, thank you. There was this, I think it was really well constructed and written by John Dorsey, our writer. And so, it's these sort of parallel timelines happening where Jack and Rebecca go out on a date night. We've revealed, oh, this is how Jack got his mustache, because he was sort of trying to, Rebecca had done her Princess Di cut, and so he was being an ally, and then showing like, hey, we can both still be spontaneous, and let's go out to dinner on a Wednesday night. And she goes and plays the piano, and to me it was part of her memory. When you listen to the words of the song, and she's talking about this moment and having this moment this is the forever now, and so and as we cut to her with him, like, you can, to me it's like this feeling of, yeah, she, even though this is 40 years later, this is still very real for her, this memory of her husband, this great memory that she had. And the way that, it was such a beautiful song, for one thing, that it was Mandy's husband, Taylor, and our composer, Sid. They wrote that song, and it was like, oh, wait, this has been our theme song all along? Like, okay, wow, okay. And then, to put those lyrics with it, and the way that we shot it, when the actors heard the song on camera, it was their first time hearing it. So when you see Chrissy reacting, that was her first time hearing the song. And when you and so if you can imagine the way that room was set up, we started with the main table with Chrissy and Miguel, and, you know, 3 cameras. On that day, we had 3 cameras because there was just so much work to do and so many characters to cover. And so we had a camera on each person, and we got their genuine reaction to the first time they heard the song. The people behind us aren't there. So then we moved back and we bring in Sterling and Justin and Alexandra and all these other people, and they haven't heard it yet. And we get to capture their first time hearing it. And look, everybody who heard that song for the first time, including the camera operators, including the props department, like, you know, it's just tears. So, and there's nothing like getting that first time. I mean, they're great actors. You don't have to, they can pretend it, but, you know, even for them, Chrissy in particular said, thank you for letting us do it that way, you know, and being able to have that genuine reaction.
So they didn't know.
They'd never heard the song before.
Wow. Well, we're all just loving this inside baseball stuff. So thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Good. There's still 58 people here. I'm shocked.
It's fascinating. We still have just a little bit more time. Thanks so much for staying with us and giving us your time. I want to try to get to as many questions as I can. Going back up to the top, I think Ellen, this was the first question from Ellen. Since the episodes go back and forth in time, how difficult was it to film close-up shots of the 2 parents and Miguel as they age? The makeup artists must have had to work extremely hard to produce convincing faces of the older characters.
They did. That's exactly right. And it was a very time-consuming process to get them into those, the prosthetic makeup. I mean, you know, the actors bring this up, I think, sometimes when they're being interviewed, but Mandy is the youngest, but she plays the mom. I was born in 1977. I just turned 45. Milo Ventimiglia, also born in 1977. Justin Hartley, also born in 1977. Sterling K. Brown, 1976. We're all about the same age. Mandy's still in her 30s.
No kidding.
But she plays the mom, and it's totally convincing. And, you know, we see her so often, so much in that makeup in these different times. And it was, I'll give you a little window into episode 17, 18, when we get to see young Rebecca again. And I don't know, you forget, like, wow, she's so young and beautiful. Yeah, because you get used to, and especially as you see her age in this show, and we get her into her 80s, and she's very deteriorated by the end, right? And then it was almost shocking. Who is this young, beautiful woman?
So I guess it's really important that you have to map out in what order you do the scenes, right? So like,
yeah, I mean, it's very time consuming. It's tiring for the actors, right? So, you know, if we start at 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday, that means hair and makeup and the actors who are getting put into hair and makeup for those prosthetics, they're probably there at 4 in the morning. And then when we wrap, they've got an extra hour plus to get out of it, because you can't just rip it off, right?
Right.
They have to do a process. So.
Carol asks, what is a typical workday like for you? Is this 5 days a week, 6 days a week?
Typical is 5 days a week. I would say This Is Us is a pretty gentle show in terms of hours. So, you know, and that means like we're averaging between, I'd say we average about 10 hours a day. We have our 12-hour days now and then, but we're averaging about 10 hours a day. That's short for TV and film. I mean, most shows, you know, I was talking about coming up on Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt. that was a show where we would come in at 7 on Monday, 7 a.m. on Monday. We'd wrap at 8 o'clock, 8:30 on Monday night. And then actors have, by SAG rules, they need 12 hours, what we call turnaround, before they can start work the next day. So you can't start until 8:30 a.m. Tuesday. You're a show about ghosts and night. So by Friday, you're starting at least by noon and finishing at 1 in the morning or so. But more likely we were starting at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock and finishing at like 6 a.m. on Saturday. The industry's changing, I think, for the better. That, like, we're really saying that's not healthy. We need to have a better work-life balance. I certainly am not interested in working on shows like that anymore. And whatever I have in my power as a director or producer or whatever, like, I don't want people to work like that. It's not good for your personal life.
Well, yeah, and you would, I guess, age out pretty quickly, right? Like, you just couldn't keep that up.
Well, you'd think, but you've got grips and electricians who, they're 64 and they're 65, getting towards retirement age, like, and still doing those 70-hour weeks. It's pretty impressive.
That is amazing. Alan asks, are you exhausted at the end of the day?
Yeah.
But what motivates you to get up the next morning?
Breakfast burritos.
Oh, you love your work.
Yeah,
you love it.
No, I love my work, and this show in particular. If you got to be a fly on the wall for any of those last couple episodes, or really any of the series, and certainly into like our wrap party, which happened on this last Saturday, and there are people who, one of our main producers who's been doing this for 50 years, 21 Jump Street, A-Team, and he's like, this has been the best cast and crew of my career. It's been a very special group, a special project, and a lot of that comes from the top. Dan Fogelman is just such an earnest, good, honest human being, and that trickles down through the rest of the crew and the cast. And Milo Ventimiglia is one of these people who, every time he's on set, the first thing he does is he goes around and he shakes everybody's hand and says good morning. He knows everybody's name, and not one of those actors got a big head in 6 years. As much success as the show had, we didn't have any big egos or problems, which surfaced on lesser shows that I worked on in just season 2. Scorpion.
Well, we'll start to wrap things up, but I do want to get to one other question. Kathy's been waiting a long time to ask a question, but did you realize any time glitches or any mistakes in the story afterwards that you wish you could have corrected?
That's a good question. In the course of 6 seasons, even though Dan had a very clear start and finish and a complete story in mind, and that's why he knew, okay, we're going to go 6 seasons. After season 3, I mean, this is completely unheard of. We got picked up for 3 more seasons, and he wasn't interested in doing more because he said, "This is the story," and I have so much respect for that. Like, this is what it is. We're not going to try to milk it for more money or whatever. We're going to give people a chance to sort of parlay this into more career success after. But in the course of 6 years, there are plot holes, and there are things. And one thing that Dan was joking about was a little bit more insight into episode 17 and 18. There's a lot that happens on this train, and he was saying, well, maybe one of the cars in the train is just the answer to all of these plot holes, right? And so you open the door, and there's Rebecca's sister, who we've talked about but never met, and there's Kate and Toby's dog Audio, and there's, you know, all of these little things that, you know, you look back and go, what happened to that thing that never went anywhere? What happened to that thing that never went? Yeah, we always talk about Audio, who was such a good dog, but, you know, as soon as the babies came, we never saw him again. I think it was partially like a casualty of COVID and trying to not have as many people on set. And so, you know, when you have a dog, that's like a 3-person team to get the dog you know, on set.
Oh my God, we haven't even gotten to what it was like to work on a show during COVID, but we'll save that for another day. But it just sounds like you're very sad to leave this show, but maybe excited for new opportunities. Does this mean you're moving to Canada? Or? Just
for 3 months. So yeah, the show that you mentioned, Horror of Dolores Roach, season 1, it'll be on Amazon Prime. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify. They made 2 seasons, and it's like I said, horror comedy. It takes place in Washington Heights, New York, but we're going to be doubling Toronto for Washington Heights. I think we'll get 2 days to shoot New York at the end of the shoot. So I get to visit Toronto for 3 months and see what that's like, and really kind of, you know, this is my first time as a cinematographer for a whole series, and I will say season 1 of anything is always the most exciting, because you're establishing all the things and you don't know if this is going to be a hit or if it's going to be a flop. So yeah, that's what's next.
Okay, well, boy, we have kept you for 2 hours talking about all kinds of things. So thanks so much. I have one final question before I ask everyone to just kind of unmute yourselves and thank James for showing up with us. The question is, and this is from an anonymous asker, did you ever win Pictionary at Thanksgiving? Did you ever win the award?
Did I ever win the award?
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's, on the trophy, we record the name. I think I've won on more than one team.
Oh, and I believe, is Eileen still here? Does Eileen have the trophy handy?
Actually, no. I think it's my sister Vivian who has the trophy.
Does Vivian have it?
People have known to have been walked out of the room.
Oh my gosh! Did you keep any of the winning drawings? Are there any like winners?
We have photographs.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, James, you were here. CC.
Wow.
Oh.
See? Okay.
Oh.
I don't know if you can see
and
that.
Wesley's there.
Wesley,
oh yeah, and Auntie Jerry.
and Nick.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't think that. Oh, I actually won one year, huh?
But look at that trophy. Okay, can someone explain the history of this trophy and how it got made?
Oh, I was a volunteer at the Pacific Asia Museum in Pasadena and worked in the gift store. And the manager was an amazing collector of stuff. And this was one of the items in the store. But nobody bought it.
It was so ugly, nobody bought it.
So I took pity on it and knew that it was the perfect trophy for our Pictionary games.
It really is. It really is kind of memorable, isn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
It's very, very different.
Yes.
So does the winner get to take the trophy home, or it just stays somewhere?
No, they're teams. It's a team thing.
Oh, how many people per team?
What,
4 or 5?
5 or 6.
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah, depending on how many people are there that year.
Oh, I don't think I've played that version of Pictionary.
This can't be very interesting for the rest of the people.
We're down to 43.